Okay, and I'm here with Paul Gilding now, who just did a speech earlier on today. You wrote a book. Please remind me of the title.
Great Disruption.
The Great Disruption. Please all buy it, because it's got very important messages.
Or borrow it from the library.
Or borrow it from the library. Yeah, that was part of the message, wasn't it? Don't buy it. Or read it online, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is it online?
You can get most of it online on my website, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just told you how this live stream works.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the questions that came in from the viewers. Marlies.
Question we had was from Bart, and he says, Paul, you say in your TED Talk, Earth is full. Do you really see solutions in virtuality?
So I think there is a lot of opportunity in virtuality, in an experience-based economy, in recognising we can spend money and have economic activity which doesn't involve physical stuff. So yes, that's a very important part of the future. It's not enough by itself to solve the problem, because the issue for us in the West, yes, we can change our approach dramatically and have less staff and have more experience and have virtual experiences, but we have billions of people in the world who currently don't want, as I say, they don't want an iTunes store, right? They want milk and chickens and houses and TVs. They're
and
at
Easter
that
eggs.
stage and Easter eggs, and they want stuff. And therefore, yes, there is a lot of opportunity in thinking differently about the economy, but it's not going to be enough to have us smoothly transition to a different approach.
Okay. Does that answer the question to Bart?
Yes, we're off to the next question. It's from Martin. Do you believe inclusive business, linking large companies to poor communities, can make a difference?
Look, I've done a lot of work with business, and I'm a big fan of doing that because I think there is much opportunity in that space. The caution I have is the idea that some businesses sort of see it as something they do alongside their business. So over here they make money, and then over here they do good things for the world.
Yeah.
And my point is that doesn't work. You have to actually do good things for the world in order to make money.
Yeah.
Right. So partnerships, getting involved in communities, sponsoring, investing, and so on, is good, but it needs to be integrated into the business, not kind of philanthropic or volunteer thing on the side. And so as long as it's done that way, to engage people and think about different products and think about the business you're in, then it's a good thing. But it must be careful not to have it into a kind of greenwashing or just a PR exercise.
Yeah, so it's a matter of choice.
Yeah. Choice and how you do it and doing it sincerely and deeply, not in a token way.
Okay, so referring to your speech, do you think that we don't choose to do good all the time because we're oblivious or because we're in denial?
So I think there's a lot of complicated things going on there. I think denial, as I say, is kind of almost a healthy thing for humanity, because sometimes denial helps you cope with grief, helps you avoid things that are too much to deal with. Right? So denial becomes sort of a defence mechanism, which sometimes you need. Then it becomes destructive if it gets exaggerated, like Klaus was talking about. If denial becomes exaggerated, so you ignore reality and don't face up to what we need to face up to, then it becomes a destructive force. So I think that's where we have to kind of balance that process. And I think the accepting what's going on in the world, accepting that much of that is sad, and much of that is very sad and tragic, but nevertheless it is where we are. And now we need to act from that different place of acceptance, I think, is where we need to kind of get to. But that's a complicated process.
Yeah, but you have a strong belief that it will happen, eh? That at one point after the crisis we will all face up and we will learn and I was thinking that it sort of assumes that at one point we will all reach some kind of spiritual level.
Look, I'm not sure we all will, but yes, many of us will. So
Right.
I think we have to accept that different people approach these issues in different ways. So I think the crisis that I see around us now, but will become clearer and clearer, will force people to question things a lot more. Many people, like online now and in this conference, are already there. They already recognise the crisis is happening. We need to do things differently. So I think we have to accept that some people will see this as a spiritual journey, a journey towards greater consciousness, towards greater contribution to society, a more self-actualised life. Some people will just see it as an economic necessity, that we haven't got enough money to buy enough stuff anymore, so we should learn to live with less because we have to. And therefore stronger community becomes important. And that's all okay. I don't want to sort of judge different people approaching it in different ways. What we need to avoid is kind of a panic response to the crisis. Oh my God, there's not enough resources, quickly grab my share and grab hold of them and hold them. That's like a fear response.
Yeah.
As opposed to recognising that strength comes from community and from connection.
Yeah, which assumes that if we fast forward to past the crisis, that we'll live in a world where people are equal.
I'd say
Is that
more.
right?
I'd say I have a chapter in my book which I call ineffective inequality. Right, that we're never going to be equal.
No.
Right, but we can be extremely unequal, which
Yeah.
is destructive and really bad for society and for people.
Yeah.
Or we can be a little bit unequal, which gives us an appropriate reward. You know, humans are humans, right? So we need to kind of get a reward for effort. And so the idea that people work harder or study harder or innovate or take risks, they should be rewarded for that, right? And they should get an extra kind of whatever in return. Part of that's an emotional return. You know, part of might be a financial return. They get some return for that. But we've gone so far, too far with that. This whole 1%, 99% kind of issue in the Occupy movement is because that inequality has become too extreme.
Yeah.
But yes, so to answer more directly, yes, we'll be a lot more equal. We have to be a lot more equal in society because the current economy is unfair, and unfair equals unstable.
Yeah. So
Right.
what will happen in the meantime with the millions of people that are uneducated and are starving and thus don't have enough vitamins to develop their intelligence, for instance?
Correct. So that's where we have to recognise that we have to deal with that issue as a global society, not just because it's the right thing to do, it is the right thing to do, but because it's essential for our stability, for our economic stability as a society. If we don't deal with extreme poverty, if we don't deal with extreme inequality, then our society becomes unstable. An unstable society to live in is insecure,
Yeah.
right? It's not a good economy, right? It's not a good place to spiritually, personally be, right? So we have to recognise that we have to deal with that out of self-interest as well as out of a greater moral imperative.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the society will not survive.
Yeah, I follow you, but what I don't quite completely follow yet is that there's a room of people here. They are aware things are, not going into the right way. We need to do something. Then there's millions of people that are oblivious. They're not aware. They're not even aware that there's people here that are looking out for them.
Yes.
Right? How do these two groups find each other?
Yeah, so I think we have to change the system. So I think, and it's sort of a simplistic but a very complicated answer. So the system has to deal with the fact that greater equality and investing in alleviating extreme poverty, for example, like the question you're referring to, is actually the way we normally do things. Right now, we have this sort of individualistic extremism. It's sort of what I call free market fundamentalism, whereas markets by itself is all we have to do. If you let markets go, the world will fix itself up. We're seeing that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't just work like morally or ethically, it doesn't work in a practical sense.
Yeah.
Because the society is destroying the earth, destroying the basis of which the economy lives. So we have to change that kind of the model, the idea behind it, to say, well, of course we have to eliminate poverty. Of course we can't have people suffering malnutrition, because who would want to live in that world? And it's hard to imagine that today, but if you were living in a time of slavery, if you're living in apartheid in South Africa, you couldn't imagine that future being that different.
Yeah.
And yet amazing things have changed.
Yeah.
And so we have to imagine the potential for a radical transformation to a point where naturally we will think that, of course, if someone was in this room now, starving next to us, right, lying on the floor, dying from malnutrition, we wouldn't say, oh, sorry, you missed out on the economy, I'm okay. We would act because it was there. And so that's like a consciousness shift we have to make to recognise that they're all just there.
Yeah, we should all do yoga.
We should all do, all those things, exactly. We should all be aware of what's happening in our world and responding to it. And that's achievable. It's not an idealistic kind of just a fantasy of spiritual growth. It's a practical need to make our global economy more stable, right, more secure and better for all of us, not just for them. It's not about, we have to give up and they have to have our stuff. It's about recognising that we're all better off with that kind of system.
Yeah. Marlies, do we have more questions from viewers?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we actually have a lot of responses coming in on the chat. People saying it's a beautiful vision, wise words. And a new question just came in. Can Paul give examples of where people did take great action?
Yeah, look, there's lots of examples around of people who are doing quite extraordinary things. I mentioned one today in my speech. There's a program in Australia, started in Australia now, spreading to the US and to Netherlands, called Buy Nothing New Month. And the idea being that, don't sacrifice everything in your life and live like a life of poverty. Just try for 1 month not to buy anything new except for food and medicine.
Yeah.
Right? And just see it as a detox program from consumerism. And that idea is now taking off. And it's taking off because we know that this constant consumerism, this constant idea of more stuff doesn't work. It's, forget the sort of moral or environmental impact. It doesn't work for us. It's not making us happier. So the average level of life satisfaction and happiness in the Western world hasn't gone up for decades, despite the fact that we have more and more economic growth. So people are responding to that. People are running programs like this, Buy Nothing New Month. They're responding in ways of just living a different life and saying, actually, students who are saying, I don't want to work for a coal company or an oil company. I want to work for an entrepreneurial startup, a social company that's doing something useful. Big companies are seeing that they need to be doing responsible business to attract the best students. People like the Bill McKibben movement for 350.org, organising young people to act on climate change, but not in anger, but in with love, right? So recognising that, celebrating and being recognising we need to kind of project a new society in the way we build it is actually a very important part of that process. And look, in technology, amazing things are happening. Solar power is dropping in price dramatically. Financial markets are starting to wake up to the risk inherent in investing in coal and oil. So we're seeing it at many different levels. Different companies doing things, trying new ideas out and so on. So I think we see lots of those examples.
Okay. And let me see if there's a reaction on the chat on this. Not yet, Marlies?
There are no new questions anymore, but I think everybody's really happy with all the answers they got.
Yeah, so let's go into that Buy Nothing New month for a second. How does it actually work? It doesn't mean that you can't spend money, right?
Correct. So what it means is that just try for 1 month not to buy any new physical product, right? Except for food, obviously, and medicine and like urgent things you have to have. But
new
the idea,
as in
new from a shop.
Right.
So what it means is you can go and buy second-hand things.
Yeah.
You can go to a swap party where you exchange clothes. You can go to a second-hand shop. You can buy things online second-hand. So think about your stuff. And it's not that doing it itself is going to save the world. Right, that's not the idea. The idea is to help you think about consumerism.
Yeah,
to help
and it starts with yourself.
Starts with you.
Yeah.
Right, and don't see it as a moral question. See it as a opportunity for a greater awareness of your life.
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of surrounded by marketing messages and consume this and buy this, and if you're not happy you bought the wrong one, buy a new one. There's a new one come out. The sort of Apple iPhone campaign, which drives me mad. This changes everything. No, it doesn't. It's just a new phone.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
Right? So that idea that we can somehow have, satisfaction, we can be sexier, happier, smarter, cooler by having a physical thing, we know is wrong.
Yeah.
But when we're bombarded with those messages every day, it's hard to sort of break out of the cycle.
Yeah.
And it's not like, good people don't do it, or bad people, being irresponsible. We all have it. We all suffer from it.
Yeah.
And it comes from this idea that is not a bad thing, which is that for many thousands of years, many millions of years, having enough stuff was really important. Because that stuff was food.
Yeah.
Right, and so for our genes have kind of evolved with the idea of get enough food, hold on to it, store it for winter, and so that comes from an understandable place. But we've kind of exaggerated it and gone to the extreme with it, like Klaus talks about, and that becomes destructive.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of break out of that, and that's the idea that if you just consciously buy less stuff, have a month buying nothing new, etc., and do it amongst your friends and form clubs around it and go to the websites that talk about it and register what you're doing and what the experience was, because most people who do that, there's another one is the compact in the US, where people did it for a year, bought nothing new for a year, and they said the sort of shock to their system was enormous and really hard to actually adapt to that, but then in the end they worked out new ways of living, and they all reported their lives had improved.
Okay, so where can we find those people? Because there are
exactly.
Example,
We'll just
right?
search for Buy Nothing New Month, and you'll find some of those. Search for the Compact, which is the US organisation.
The Compact.
The Compact. There's another one, a guy in New York who wrote a book called No Impact Man. He said, I'm going to have no environmental impact for a year, and wrote a book and a blog around that. There's another one, the 100 Thing Challenge. So this guy who said, I'm going to own 100 things. I'm going to get rid of everything else and just own 100 things myself.
Yeah.
And how you did that. And just so really good stories.
Yeah.
and recognising it can be quite hard, but when you get past that resistance and overcome it, you're actually liberated in that process, and that's where the good examples are.
Okay, Steph, there's a question from the social media team, Marlies.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a comment coming in from Gerdien, and she says, tell him I always buy secondhand clothes and look pretty cool. And we had another question coming in from Michael. Please ask him, what can I do tomorrow to change my world or life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question.
The first comment is really important, that we have to make it cool.
Yeah.
We have to make it uncool to always buy new stuff.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to make it cool to buy second hand, cool to reuse things, cool to fix things, go back to fixing things that are broken, and recognise it's not, I really want to emphasise this strongly, it's not a sacrifice.
No.
It's improving your life.
Yeah.
And so we have, because the human desire to improve your life, improve your quality of life is very strong.
Yeah, you get more depth into your life.
Exactly. It's healthy. It's good to want to improve things. Just recognise you don't improve things by buying more stuff.
Yeah. So, a new iPhone makes you feel dirty.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly. It's like, and look, my iPhone is 4 years old. Isn't it cool? It's still working.
Yeah.
So and it's not like anything new is bad. You can't sort of overdo it to extreme either. But it's recognising. Just think.
Yeah.
Just think. Just be conscious.
Yeah.
Just like everything in life. Be aware of what you're doing and the consequences, and therefore recognise that some constraint around that behaviour is also important. The question about what to do tomorrow, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah.
Because I think, of course, that depends on your situation. But by and large, I think, ask yourself, are you living a good life? Right. So it's a really simple idea. Are you living a good life? And a good life is, are you making a contribution? Like, are you helping the world be a better place every day? Are you being nice to people? Like, do you make your friends feel good? Really, I want to go back to the absolute basic things of how to be happy.
How to be a human being.
How to be a human being in a happy society, surrounded by all these conflicting messages. So, are you happy? Are you doing good things? Is your life on track? Are you making a contribution? Is this the most important thing you can be doing right now? Is this the contribution you should be making at this moment? And are you sort of improving people around you in their lives? And then ask other questions like, am I living the right life in terms of how much stuff I buy? Am I helping other people who need help? And again, recognising that what the research says is that living your life in that way makes you happier. Yeah. Really important. It makes you happier. It's not about you shouldn't fly, you shouldn't do this because you're a bad person and you'll make the world a bad place. Yeah. You're doing it for, that's not a motivating reason. It works for a little bit.
And we all know how to do it, I think, because our greatest examples in the world are people who are always giving, right?
Exactly.
We know it, really. In our heart, we know it.
I always have this sort of slide when I'm presenting, sometimes put up a slide of Mahatma Gandhi and a slide of Donald Trump. And so who would you rather be remembered as? The guy who made lots of money, built dumb buildings, or, changed the world completely with nothing. Yeah. And that idea, the Nelson Mandela's, all the people in history who, the women who ran the suffragette movement, I mean, these are extraordinary examples of people who made a big difference, and we aspire to them. Yeah. We don't put posters of Bill Gates on our bedroom door, right? No. We do people we actually idolise and want to be like, and that's about making a contribution. Yeah. Because we know that's right. We know that feels good.
There you go. So it's not all too hard, is it?
No, it's very, very easy is a really important point. Yeah. And you just got to learn to detach from the messages around you saying it's not right.
It's easy, guys.
Yeah, it's easy. Exactly.
It's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
You were waving some? You weren't waving?
No, I think I was waving to the social media team, but everything is fine. So thanks from Michael, actually, who asked the question.
There you go.
Thank you.
Shall we play a song?
Is there any Australian song?
There's lots of Australian songs.
But there's one big one.
What would you like to hear?
Anything.
No,
anything
don't say anything.
Midnight Oil.
Is there a question?
Oh my God.
I saw you waving, Marlies.
Yes, a question just came in right after you said everything was fine.
Okay.
Does Paul believe in the fact that money as we know it could disappear when sharing more and more stuff and services?
Well, this is a very deep question. I think it's hard to imagine money disappearing because we need kind of a mechanism for exchange. But we can absolutely imagine money being less important so that there are other ways of exchanging. And we can recognise that our obsession with money as the single measurement takes us towards this very narrow view, which is more money equals more stuff, I'm happy. Right? So exchanging, one of the things the great ideas that I love is the free cycling movement. Right? And free cycling is simply saying, I've got something for free, I need to get rid of something. Would anyone in my network like to have it? and they can come and pick it up.
Yeah.
And so we moved house, and I put all the stuff I didn't want anymore on free cycling, and I met all these people. All these people came to my house and had the conversation and took the stuff away. So I got rid of the stuff I didn't need. I didn't take it to the landfill, right? It went to a good home, but I had the conversation with people. Now I could have sold that, right, at a garage sale, or I could have sold it somewhere and got money for it. But the point was I wouldn't have any value in that.
Yeah.
The value I got was the relationship.
Yeah.
That my stuff was going to a good place and that I had the conversation with people about those issues. And that idea, I think, is very powerful, because what it means is we're thinking about money as a useful mechanism sometimes, but not as the end of not as the end objective of all that we try and do.
Yeah.
I actually have a question, Paul. What is Midnight Oil actually means?
Midnight Oil.
Yeah, what does it mean?
Is a rock and roll band in Australia.
Yeah. Does it have a special meaning?
No, just burning the midnight oil.
Oh, okay.
It's like staying up, working hard, thinking late, partying late. Midnight oil is like, burning the midnight oil, staying up late as young people do, and party and dance to midnight oil.
There you go. How does this sound?
Excellent.
Cool.
One of my favourite songs.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Good, thank
Keep
you.
talking.
Okay. Good, thank you.